Welcome back to Exposed Hollywood. What if I told you that some of reggae's biggest icons are no longer shining on stage, but languishing behind prison walls? From Ninjaman, sentenced to life for murder, to Sean Kingston caught in a web of luxury fraud, the reality is harsher than any baseline. These aren't just sensational headlines, they're shocking downfalls that drag legends down to their core. Leave a comment if you're ready to explore reggae's darkest secrets. Buckle up, let's go. Jah Cure, the voice that couldn't escape the cage. Jah Cure, born Cicature Alcock, was never just another reggae singer from Jamaica. His voice, smooth as silk, drenched in soul, carried a rare power that could break hearts and lift spirits all in the same breath. In 1997, his duet King in This Jungle with Sizzla wasn't simply a debut, it was a declaration. Produced by the legendary Beres Hammond, who would later become his mentor, Jah Cure was instantly crowned the young prince of conscious reggae. By 1998, his star was blazing bright. European tours, Caribbean love, radio stations spinning his name on repeat. It seemed like destiny had written him a golden future. But fame, as always, is a double-edged sword. In November of that same year, his world came crashing down. Pulled over in Montego Bay, he was arrested and charged with gun possession, robbery, and assault. By 1999, he was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. For most artists, that would have been the final curtain. But Jah Cure was different. From behind the iron bars of Tower Street Adult Correctional Center, he did the unthinkable. He kept creating. With nothing but access to a small digital studio, Cure poured his soul into 3 albums: The Truth, 2000, Ghetto Life, 2003, and Freedom Blues, 2005. Each record was raw, aching, and drenched in spiritual longing. His voice traveled where his body could not, soaring past prison walls and reaching millions who felt his pain and his hope. In 2007, after serving 8 years, Jah Cure walked free. Just 3 days later, he dropped True Reflections, a new beginning, a title that promised redemption. For a moment, it seemed like the comeback was real. But peace is fragile, and old demons don't die easily. In October 2021, tragedy struck again when Cure was arrested in Amsterdam for stabbing a music promoter. By 2022, a Dutch court had sentenced him to 6 years behind bars. And so, once more, the man with the golden voice found himself silenced by steel doors. Jah Cure's story remains a heartbreaking ballad, a haunting mix of genius, triumph, and self-destruction. Loved for his voice, shadowed by his past, his journey leaves fans torn between admiration and sorrow, asking the question, is Jah Cure cursed by his own brilliance, or is redemption still waiting in the next verse? Digga D, from viral bars to prison bars. Reese Herbert, better known as Digga D, was born on June 29, 2001, in Ladbroke Grove, London. He's not just a rapper, he's a contradiction in motion, a star forged in chaos, and a cautionary tale unfolding in real time. With a Bajan father and Jamaican mother, rhythm was in his blood. By 12, he was already writing lyrics, turning raw pain and cultural pride into verses that cut straight to the bone. In 2017, Digga burst onto the scene as part of CJM, short for Cherish God More. The name was ironic, considering the legal trouble that quickly followed. His early mixtapes, Double Tap Diaries and Made in the Pyrex, stormed the UK charts, hitting number 10 and number 3. Then came Naughty by Nature in 2022, which claimed the number 1 spot. For a moment, it looked like nothing could stop him. But fame came with a price. In 2018, Digga and his crew were slapped with an unprecedented criminal behavior order. They were forbidden from referencing real incidents, people, or places in their lyrics without police approval. It was the first ruling of its kind, essentially placing every bar he spit under surveillance. His words were censored, monitored, and still streamed by millions. The arrests kept coming, one during a Black Lives Matter protest, others tied to incitement and possession. Each release seemed only temporary. Before long, the blue lights were flashing again. Fans began asking, was Digga D truly the problem, or just the target? The turning point came on February 21, 2024. In a shocking moment broadcast live on Instagram, police raided his home in Bracebridge Heath. Thousands watched as officers ordered him out, hands up. The stream cut. Digga was taken into custody. The charges: supplying and importing 45 kilograms of illegal substances. He appeared in court from HMP Wormwood Scrubs and later pleaded guilty. Though he denied being part of a large-scale operation, a Newton hearing in December 2024 sealed his fate. On January 31, 2025, Digga D was sentenced to 3 years and 11 months in prison. Today, the rapper who once dominated the charts sits behind bars. His story is one of raw talent colliding with relentless turbulence, a gifted storyteller trapped by the very streets that shaped him. But with youth still on his side, the question remains: can Digga D rewrite his future, or will this sentence define his legacy forever? Fireverse, the dancehall prodigy whose blazing rise hit a sudden storm. He wasn't handed fame. He carved it out, track by track, beat by beat. Back in 2019, a quiet collab with Dutch producer Shada Gal lit the first spark. 4 years later, that spark roared into a wildfire. Their song didn't just chart, it erupted. By 2025, it had stormed the Billboard Argentina Hot 100 and claimed the #1 spot on Hype TV Jamaica. It wasn't just music, it was a declaration. A bold, raw, unforgettable voice had arrived in Caribbean dancehall. Riding that wave, Fireverse linked with Chavo for Time's Dread. The track shook dance floors, dominated playlists, and climbed straight to #1 on the Fue Choice Top 10. Industry insiders crowned him the next big thing. Fans called him unstoppable. The HDP Music Awards sealed it with a nomination for Best Reggae Act. Everything pointed to a superstar in the making. But just as his flame burned brightest, darkness struck. One late night in Bridgetown, Barbados, a routine traffic stop spiraled into headlines. Police claimed they found a banned substance in his car. In an instant, the rising king of dancehall was no longer the story of triumph, but of trouble. Arrested, splashed across tabloids. His team swears he's innocent. They insist the truth is bigger than the headlines. But Fireverse himself? Silent. No tweets. No press statements. Just a tense, waiting game as his legal team prepares for battle. Now the world watches. Is this only a detour on his path to greatness, or the start of a storm that could shatter everything he built? If you're still riding with him, drop a 9 in the comments. Kiprich, the dancehall rebel who always walked the razor's edge. Born Marlon Plunkett in the gritty Waterhouse district of Kingston, he was never just another name on the scene. With a mischievous grin and a lyrical aim sharp as a sniper's bullet, Kiprich turned controversy into chart-topping fuel. Under the mentorship of the flamboyant Elephant Man, he carved out his place in the notorious Alliance crew, a brotherhood of hardcore dancehall warriors. Still a student at Arden High, he burst onto the scene with Lego'd Boy alongside Chino, and from there, his fire only grew hotter. Tracks like Mad Sickhead and No Good, where he fearlessly dissed giants like Elephant Man, Beanie Man, and Vybz Kartel, cemented his reputation as fearless and unpredictable. Then came the explosive Juke Gal remix with Lil Jon and the East Side Boys, a 2003 smash that took his name global. Fans loved his playful clashes and witty hooks, but in dancehall, the line between entertainment and real life is always dangerously thin. By 2013, Kiprich shifted gears with his album Kipo, delivering heartfelt tracks like My Heart Is a Jail with Queso White. Yet even at the height of his artistry, trouble stalked him. When Jamaican police accused him of glorifying crime in a song allegedly honoring slain gang leader Othniel Laban, the headlines erupted. Authorities claimed he was romanticizing violence, but Kiprich pushed back. It's not about inciting violence, he insisted. It's about telling the story. Caught between freedom of expression and the weight of public judgment, Kiprich became a symbol of dancehall's eternal struggle, the thin line between lyrical art and the brutal realities of the streets. Ninjaman, from dancehall king to life behind bars. With a mic in his hand and fire on his tongue, Ninjaman, born Desmond Ballantyne, wasn't just a DJ, he was a force of nature. Explosive, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore, he shook Jamaica's dancehall scene to its core. Starting at just 14 under the name Double Ugly, he tore through sound systems like Black Culture before stepping onto the legendary Kilimanjaro stage, where icons like Supercat and Early B sharpened his craft. By 1987, the world knew him as Ninjaman. His breakout anthem Protection with Courtney Melody became more than a hit, it was a warning shot. He didn't just rap, he attacked the mic, spitting raw, streetwise lyrics that painted the harsh realities of Kingston life. Tracks like Murder Dem, Border Clash, and Permit to Bury cemented his image as dancehall's most feared bad man, fueling lyrical wars with Flower Gone, Shabba Ranks, and even his old mentor, Supercat. But the tide began to turn. By the 90s, his gun-centric lyrics clashed with the shifting public mood. Promoters backed off, radio stations went silent, and the once untouchable star faced fading glory. In 1997, he tried to reinvent himself as Brother Desmond, embracing gospel reggae, battling addiction, and declaring himself a born-again Christian. For a moment, redemption seemed possible. Then tragedy struck. In March 2009, Ninjaman and his son Daniel were arrested for the murder of Ricardo Johnson after a heated dispute spiraled out of control. Prosecutors claimed Ninja and his crew returned armed the next day, chasing Johnson down before he was fatally shot. After nearly a decade of court delays and public scrutiny, the verdict came crashing down. On November 20, 2017, Ninjaman was found guilty of murder. A month later, the dancehall icon who once ruled the stage was sentenced to life in prison, no chance of parole for 25 years. From the electrifying heights of dancehall stardom to the cold silence of a prison cell, Ninjaman's story remains one of music's most dramatic rises and falls. Zebra Katz, the roar that shook Jamaica, then faded into silence. Born into reggae royalty as the son of Dennis Walks of Drifter fame, Zebra Katz was never meant to live in the shadows. He exploded onto the scene in 1990 with the Strikeforce sound system, spitting fire and electrifying crowds across the island. Just a year later, his breakout hit Way You Run F.A., produced by Prince Jaaybo, proved he wasn't just another DJ. He was a force of nature. Sound system giants like Stone Love, Metro Media, and Black Scorpio all opened their doors to him. With a wild, animated delivery inspired by Tiger, Zebra's performances were unforgettable. Songs like Picture 5 Frame, Redder Than Red, and Rupert showed off his raw, fearless energy. Even artists like Kiprich and Left Side paid tribute, honoring the outrageous charisma that Zebra and Tiger brought to dancehall. But behind the flashing lights and roaring crowds, a darker story was brewing. In 2001, Zebra's rise came crashing down. Convicted of assault and probation violations, he was sentenced to 10 years behind bars, serving 7 at Tower Street Correctional before regaining his freedom in 2008. For a moment, it seemed like redemption was possible. But fate, and perhaps his own choices, struck again. Just 2 years later, Zebra was back in court facing even graver charges. This time, the verdict was crushing: 30 years of hard labor. The man who once set dance floors ablaze now found his voice silenced, caged by concrete walls, lost to time, and remembered as both a blazing comet and a cautionary tale. From the heights of dancehall stardom to the cold walls of a Florida jail, the rise and fall of RMC Mike, born Andre Whitaker, reads like a cautionary tale. He wasn't just another voice out of Jamaica. He was the self-proclaimed sixth boss, a street poet turned superstar whose anthems, Oh La, Trending, and Money Fever, blazed from Montego Bay dance halls to Miami clubs. Leading the feared 6th Opera Dex crew, alongside Chronic Law, Daddy One, and Bobby 6ix9ine, Mike became the raw, unfiltered voice of Jamaica's youth. By 2018, his buzz was impossible to ignore. A year later, he cemented his legacy with Beat Damn Bad, a collaboration with none other than Vybz Kartel. That track wasn't just a hit. It was a declaration. RMC Mike had arrived, and he wasn't backing down. But fame can't shield anyone from trouble. In February 2025, his world came crashing down. Arrested in Florida, police found him carrying a modified Glock 19 capable of automatic fire, a short-barrel shotgun, a rifle, and a concealed weapon. The charges were heavy. Mike pleaded not guilty, demanding a jury trial, but the reality was undeniable. He was stuck behind bars. Then things took an even darker turn. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, stepped in under Florida's harsh new immigration laws. Mike was transferred to the Chrome North Detention Center in Miami amid reports he lacked proper documentation to remain in the U.S. Suddenly, his criminal case had spiraled into an immigration nightmare. And this wasn't his first brush with the law. Back in 2018, during Jamaica's state of emergency in St. James, Mike, better known than as Squash, was held for 5 months without charge, released just 1 day before the emergency powers expired. By 2019, he was touring America, living the dream his music had promised. Today, in 2025, that dream feels shattered. Now he sits in a Miami cell, far from Montego Bay, his story tangled in a familiar web of talent, power, and the punishing cost of success. Fik Gaza, from truck tires to bright lights, from billboard dreams to a jail cell. Before the fame, before the flashing cameras, he was just another hustler grinding on East Africa's dusty highways. He fixed truck tires, hauled heavy cargo across borders, and shouted out stops as a taxi conductor on Uganda's toughest routes. Music wasn't a career. It was his escape. But that escape soon turned into a mission. By 2018, the streets of Kampala were buzzing with his name. Tracks like Banana, Bula, and Sanu hit like wildfire, turning the roadside hustler into a rising star. He shared stages with Afrobeat giants, lit up crowds alongside Jamaican dancehall legend Conscience, and even stole the night at Davido's legendary concert. Suddenly, Fik Gaza wasn't just a name, he was a force. But with fame came fire. A proud supporter of Uganda's opposition party, the National Unity Platform, Fik didn't just sing, he spoke. Loudly, politically, fearlessly. And that boldness carried consequences. In April 2024, he was arrested in the UAE for performing without a permit. Headlines exploded, but he refused to back down. He came back sharper, hungrier, with even more passion for his music. Then came April 7, 2022. Fik Gaza was arrested again, this time in Waiso, Uganda, charged with aggravated robbery. For a moment, it seemed the case would ease when prosecutors downgraded the charges to simple robbery. But that hope collapsed. The police reinstated the original charge, and today, Fik sits in custody at Katwa police station. Fans are stunned. Critics are divided. Some call it politics. Others call it personal. But everyone is asking the same haunting question. Is Fik Gaza the voice of a generation, or just another casualty of power, pressure, and poor choices? Sean Kingston, from Beautiful Girls to a billion-dollar bust. Back in 2007, Sean Kingston was on top of the world. With his smooth, reggae-infused pop vocals and his breakout hit Beautiful Girls, he became the unexpected star who owned the summer. Raised between Miami and Jamaica, Kingston didn't just bring island flavor to the charts, he defined an era. From Take You There to Fire Burning, the hits poured in, and fame seemed unstoppable. By 2010, he wasn't just making records, he was signing artists, including a little-known Canadian rapper named Tory Lanez. But stardom has a short shelf life. Fast forward to 2024, and the same young man who once sang about suicidal heartbreak was now facing federal charges. This time, not in a song, but in a courtroom. On July 19th, a grand jury indicted Sean Kingston and his mother, accusing them of orchestrating a luxury scam worth more than $1 million. Prosecutors claimed they used fake wire transfers and phony documents to swindle sellers out of high-end cars, jewelry, and luxury goods, then vanished without ever paying. And the schemes didn't stop there. An entertainment company accused Kingston of pretending he could book Justin Bieber for promo videos. Yes, the two had once collaborated on Eeny Meeny back in 2010, but they hadn't worked together in years. That didn't stop Kingston from allegedly name-dropping Bieber to make his cons more convincing. Then came March 28, 2025, the day the jury delivered a crushing blow. Guilty on all counts, for both Kingston and his mother. While Sean managed to avoid prison for now, securing house arrest by putting up his $500,000 home and $200,000 in cash, his mother was hauled straight into federal custody. Now, with sentencing looming on July 11th, the world is left to wonder, was Sean Kingston always chasing the spotlight, or was he simply faking it until the lies caught up with him? Tommy Lee Sparta, the Spartan who refused to stay down. Tommy Lee Sparta wasn't born into fame, he clawed his way toward it. Growing up in Montego Bay with nothing but raw talent and an unshakable hunger, he started at the very bottom, hustling for stage time as an opener at local shows. Everything changed the night Vybz Kartel watched him electrify a crowd. Impressed, Kartel pulled him into the infamous Portmore empire, giving Tommy Lee a real seat at the table. By 2011, he began sparking attention with tracks like Some Boy, Link Pon Me Chain, riding the So Bad rhythm. But the true turning point came in 2012, after Kartel's arrest. Suddenly, the spotlight shifted, and Tommy Lee had his moment. Backed by new management and a breakout music video, he burst onto the scene, not as anyone's apprentice, but as a star in his own right. His signature sound was dark, gothic, almost haunted, an eerie clash against the sunny pulse of traditional dancehall. Fans were fascinated. Critics were split. But nobody could ignore him. Hits like Spartan Soldier and Psycho carved his name into the genre, cementing him as one of dancehall's most distinctive voices. But fame always casts shadows. In December 2020, just as his momentum was peaking, it all came crashing down. Stopped by a special police unit in St. Andrew, Tommy Lee was caught with a loaded 9mm pistol tucked in his waistband. By March 2021, he stood in court and pleaded guilty. The sentence was heavy: 3 years for the gun, 2 more for the ammunition. 5 years behind bars. For his fans, it was a devastating blow. For his critics, it was proof of everything they had said. But for Tommy Lee Sparta, it was just another brutal chapter in the war of self-reinvention, a fight he's been waging his entire life. Vybz Kartel, dancehall royalty or prison poet? When you hear his name, you don't just think of music, you think of a movement. With a voice sharp as steel and lyrics that cut straight to the bone, Kartel stormed onto Jamaica's dancehall scene in the early 2000s, breaking rules and rewriting the culture with every rhyme. But from the very start, controversy clung to him like a shadow. In 2003, at the infamous Sting concert, a lyrical clash turned chaotic. What was supposed to be a battle of words erupted into fists when Kartel and his crew stormed the stage. That night was only the beginning. By 2011, the headlines had grown darker. First came arrests for drugs, then something far more chilling: murder. Authorities charged him with killing businessman Barrington "Bossy" Burton. But even behind bars, Kartel refused to be silenced. In 2012, from his prison cell, he released The Voice of the Jamaican Ghetto, a bold, defiant manifesto that railed against injustice and demanded reform. He wasn't just another inmate, he was transforming into a symbol. Then came the storm that changed everything: the murder trial of Clive "Lizard" Williams. The case played out like a crime thriller: missing victims, allegations of witness tampering, even claims that Kartel's associates staged a fake robbery to prove Williams was alive. When the trial began in late 2013, it quickly became Jamaica's longest in history: 65 days of explosive testimony, secret recordings, and a nation glued to every twist. On March 13, 2014, the verdict dropped: guilty. Kartel was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 35 years. That was later reduced in 2020, making him eligible after 32 years and 6 months, still meaning he might not see freedom until his 70s. Yet from his cell, Kartel's fire hasn't dimmed. He continues to record, to command loyalty, and to stir fierce debate. To some, he is a fallen king. To others, he's a caged genius, still carving his legacy, one verse at a time. EBK Jaaybo, the self-proclaimed street prophet, could never outrun the life he was born into. He didn't just step into rap, he kicked down the door. His breakout hit Boogeyman exploded in 2021, storming from the underground into the Billboard Hot 100 and hip-hop charts. With that gravelly voice and raw delivery, Jaaybo didn't just sound like he lived every lyric, he did. Growing up in the unforgiving streets of California, he watched his father, Rari, fight his own battles with music and survival. For Jaaybo, the mic became a weapon, the beat his battlefield. Linking up with his cousin EBK Young Jock's crew, the EBK Hot Boys, he began carving his name into the culture. By the time Letter for the Streets dropped in 2021, his pain had already been poured into every bar. Tracks like Can't Stop Me and Struggle weren't just songs. They were survival manuals, cries from the trenches. But fame never erased the cycle. Jaaybo knew prison bars as well as recording booths. Locked up at 14, back inside at 15, out at 17, only to return again. And still, behind the walls, the music never stopped. In 2023, he dropped Sinner's Prayer and the gritty album Born Behind Walls. A year later, The Reaper followed, with Boogeyman turning into a cult anthem that proved his story had power, no matter where it was told. So when Jaaybo finally walked free in early 2025, fans prayed it was his redemption. His first day out, anthem Biggest G racked up 1.5 million views in a single week, sparking hope that he'd finally turned a corner. But the streets weren't done with him. Barely a month later, on March 6, 2025, he was arrested again, this time on drug and ammunition charges. Now, once more, Jaaybo's rhymes echo from a prison cell. Even behind bars, his voice refuses silence. He dropped Fake Everyone Free Max while incarcerated, another testament that no cage can contain his fire. Thanks for watching Exposed Hollywood. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more untold stories straight from the heart of the culture.